So in the second half of the homework, you have to determine whether the equation is a reflection over the x-axis or a no reflection over the x-axis of the parent function. So let's get started. So this is a continuation of the last video where we're talking about graphs of quadratic functions. So let's write the generic form of the equation. So it's plus or minus x minus h squared plus k. And for this one, we don't really have to write it in the correct form, because what we're really looking for is whether we have a plus or a minus in front of the squared term. So here I'm going to take the squared term and I'm going to circle it. Is there a plus or a minus in front of it? Well, there's a plus, right? There's no number in front of it and no sign, so that infers that there is a plus sign here. A plus means that this graph is being opened up. It opens up, so there is no reflection across the x-axis. Okay, so really, the only thing you really need to do here is identify the squared term and determine whether its sign is positive or negative. So let's take a look at the next example. I'm going to circle the term that's being squared along with its sign. All right, so now that we have a negative, that means this graph is opens down. Okay, so this parabola is going to look like this. Okay, it opens down, which means there is a reflection across the x-axis. All right, so let's find the next one. Okay, our squared term is no longer a binomial here. It's this guy right here. Okay, it has no sign in front of it, so this is a plus. The assumed sign is always a plus. So since we have a plus, this graph opens up. Okay, so it's going to look like this. It opens up, which means that there is no reflection across the x-axis. Okay, in our next example, I'm going to circle the squared term with its sign. And because I have a negative, that means it's going to open down. So it's going to look like this, open down. That means I do have a reflection across the x-axis. And my next example, when I circle my squared term, I have a negative. That means it's going to open down, right? It's going to open down like this. And that means I do have a reflection across the x-axis. Okay, how about this last example here? There is no sign, so the assumed sign is positive. What does a positive mean? It means that my graph opens up, which means there is no reflection across the x-axis. All right, so you should be taking a look at the problems I gave you in the second section and trying to match them up with one of my example equations, right? So you can determine whether the graph opens up or down. Or you could just circle the squared term and look at its sign. A positive sign means it opens up. A negative sign means it opens down. So for the equations for the first half of this homework sheet, what should you do? You should be comparing the equation I gave you with the generic form, writing the equation I gave you in the generic form, making sure all the signs were correct, okay? Identifying your h and k values. H is your horizontal shift, K is your vertical shift. If an H or a K is 0, that means there is no shift, okay? If it has a value and it's negative, it means it's being either moved left or down. If it's positive, it means it's either being moved right or up. And then you should be taking that H and K value, making a coordinate out of it, and that's your vertex.